those of you watching on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel, like the video, drop your comments down below, share your video with anyone else that you think might be interested. Obviously, we've got a 2-week international break now, so they've got some time to catch up on old episodes. So just share them with anyone that you think's an avid Man United or Arsenal fan, or even just a football fan in general. And for those of you listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of the other podcasting platforms, please follow, give us a 5-star review. All that stuff helps us with the growth of the podcast. We'll start with Old Trafford. Man United 0, Liverpool 3. I have to say it's probably actually a bit of a flattering scoreline, not based on maybe the end stats or anything like that, or even based on the fact that I think Liverpool absolutely played us off the park to that extent. But yeah, just one team absolutely clinical, the other team absolutely clueless, and that coming together has led to quite a comfortable 3-0 win for Liverpool at Old Trafford. We were saying it in the group chat, but the first half, it was honestly it was the quality of the match was so poor. From a pressing perspective, both teams did pretty well to rob each other and cause high turnovers, but both teams were so wasteful until about the 30th minute, around then, when Trent scores that offside goal that almost flips the game, and Liverpool realise, these guys are prime for us to just to absolutely smash them if we can take our chances and be a bit more clinical. And fair play and hats off to Mo Salah and Luis Diaz, because they pretty much just turned the screw for the rest of that half. And you went from 0-0, where I feel like both teams were probably quite wasteful, but I feel like that was roughly kind of a fair reflection of where the game was, to 2-0 in the space of 5 or 6 minutes, and totally well deserved. Casemiro had an all-time stinker, and we'll get into him in a bit. But I have to give credit. Salah, from a playmaking perspective, 2 unbelievable balls, one looped cross at the back post, and then one really quick Travella style cross into Luis Diaz, who finishes it really well. And you're 2-0 down before you can even blink. And second half, I don't even think we need to spend much time on it at all. Collier comes on for Casemiro, but not much changes. It starts the same way. Liverpool come, break, rob Kobbie Mainoo, and Salah scores a good finish. But we'll talk about Onana, and we'll talk about Mainoo and some of the defending for that goal as well. And to be honest, it could have been 4, it could have been 5. Szoboszlai was ridiculously trying to walk one in when he should have just tucked it away, and it would have easily been 4-0. And then after that, at about 75 minutes, it was quite what will probably hurt just as much as a result, was the fact that Liverpool just completely backed off and just said, here you go, now you can have the ball for a bit, give the 20-odd thousand remaining fans in the stadium something to feel slightly positive about. And we had a few chances. Xerxes missed a couple of real, I wouldn't call them sitters, but, a clinical striker would probably score both. And, that could have added a bit of consolation to the game. But, it ends 3-0. Some absolutely catastrophic performances from 3/4 of our team, I'd say, or maybe even more than that, 4/5 potentially. And just, absolutely poor result. But what did you make of it, Johns, first of all? Did you think it was a fair result? And what did you make of both teams' performances?
I do think it was a fair result for Liverpool to win convincingly, but I agree with you that it definitely could have been more than 3. And on your side, it could have been more than 0, right? Because even though I think they really bopped you off the park, you did still get chances. And that was something interesting I kind of found about that Liverpool performance, which was it was dominant, but it wasn't as if they were completely shutting you down defensively. So, I mean, like the Xerxes, I think it was the header in front of goal that he puts just off centre, and Alisson basically just catches. I think if that goes in, I think you see like a very different turn of events. And I think you see that, Liverpool maybe change up the style of how they're playing. But I think because of the fact that you weren't able to put those chances away, it almost let them take their foot off the gas even more. And they were kind of just like, you know what, just do what you guys want. You can't even finish the easy chances we're giving you. We'll just let you do whatever you want now. But overall, I think in the first half, you guys were decent. It's not as if you were like absolutely awful. And I think it just led to, it was really just big mistakes that were punished by two of the, I guess, most clinical players, particularly with Salah with all of his assists, right? And I think, just Casemiro got punished. And I think that's the big difference between the two teams is you guys make a mistake, they punish you and they score. They make a mistake, you don't do anything. You just let them get away with it and off they go. Overall, not a good performance. I think, the whole Trent kissing the camera and then after the game doing all of this, I think it just adds insult to injury, really. But I don't think there's a whole lot of positivity you guys can take from the game.
Nah, yeah, I agree, man. That's why I felt like, even though I was definitely on a bit of copium and trying to be positive after the defeat at Brighton, there are things from both teams that I saw where I don't think a narrow United win was like completely bonkers to predict. I think it was an unlikely result compared to a Liverpool win. I think you went with what probably made the most sense, but you even saw elements of, the potential for a result like that in that game. Like Liverpool weren't airtight. This wasn't a Man City in their prime type thing where they, absolutely cut you apart and then just hold the ball and toy around with you. I think I've as much as it hurt and it was a disgusting way to end my weekend. And some fans are out there saying, I've heard, on the Big Six and stuff, people say, oh, it was worse than the 7-0. That's absolute balls. It's absolute rubbish. It's not worse than the 7-0. Because you know what? The 7-0 is not even the worst result I've ever felt in some of these drubbings that we've had. There's been a couple 3-0s at Old Trafford where Man City have come and absolutely killed us. And it's been a training game. Those have hurt. And I'm not just doing this in the moment deflection thing to try and take credit away from Liverpool whatsoever. 7-0 obviously hurt. This 3-0 obviously hurt. But in terms of a performance, even in the 7-0, we could have scored a few goals at the beginning. Like there were like elements of Liverpool looking still a bit weak or a bit frail. And I feel like if we'd have taken chances at certain points, maybe the game could have gone differently. There's been some 3-0s where we've lost to City where there's absolutely no sniffs we've had in the game, and they've literally toyed with us. And like you see the zookeepers like dangling a big old lamb leg in front of a massive tiger, and they're just completely playing around with it, and there's nothing they can do. There's literally zero they can do to change and affect the result. And I felt like that in quite a few Man City games. With Liverpool, I've always felt like we've been in them, even when we've taken batterings or lost. I think there's one result, I think we lost 5-0 at home one time, where I felt like that one was probably the worst result I've felt and seen against Liverpool. But even that, I feel like we had a few chances here and there. And in this game, we had a few chances. And we had some turnovers high up, like you said. And it was like a blunt instrument against like a zombie knife. Like it was, you give them the same opportunities and there's very different results. And so you have to give credit to Liverpool. They had the stardust to take those opportunities and they thoroughly deserved the 3-0 win. But performances, I'll go through them real quick. There were there's only a few players that I think come out of the game with their reputation intact. I think Dalot was okay. I think De Ligt didn't play that badly until midway in the second half when I think he started to lose a bit of composure, and it also looked like he lost a bit of energy. And I think the Maguire substitution, while I was annoyed by it, when I watched the game back, you did start to see De Ligt like give away passes, look a little bit like ragged in that point. So I kind of understand it. So I've got a bit calmer on that substitution, but it doesn't look good, obviously. But I think De Ligt was okay. I think Mazraoui wasn't terrible in the same way as Dalot, but positionally, I think there's a huge problem with pushing both of them that why. I think that's obviously, there's that clip of Arnie Slot out here talking about how he exposed that to win the game, which, all Liverpool fans are creaming over big time. And it's fair though. Like, if you watch back the highlights and everything, like Roy Keane said it before Arnie Slot came in. He's like, what the heck are the fullbacks doing going that forward? Him and Gary Neville were literally arguing, and Gary was like, yeah, we would have done that in my day. And Roy was rightly saying, no chance, Gary. There's no way you and Dennis Owen would have been bombing up the way that Mazraoui and Dalot were. And I have to agree with him. I don't think that's what would have happened. So, yeah, I don't think Mazraoui would get absolutely slaughtered for this, but he didn't have his best game. And then, yeah, all-time stinkers, Casemiro, I think it goes without saying. I can't see how he can play for us again. He's had so many poor performances in the last 12 to 18 months, but I felt like that was just that was a cherry on top one to give away. Basically, I mean, the 2 goals don't happen if he doesn't drop on the floor for the second one and do like a ridiculous pass for the first one. Obviously, there are other people to blame afterwards, because it's not just like he does that in front of the goal mouth and we can see the goal. Sandro didn't have a good game. He was poor. Onana, I feel like, can do better for definitely the third goal. And I'm sorry, if I have a world-class keeper, I might be expecting something to happen for the second goal as well. But he's just not that. He's not a goalkeeper. He's an outfield player playing in goal. And Kobbie Mainoo unfortunately had a poor game as well. He got bullied by Gravenberch, and he got robbed by McAllister for that third goal. That there's some games, and we talked about it in the Euros, we talked about it in some of his top performances, where it looks like he is playing at his own pace, and like he's able to do that within all of the madness around him. In that game, boy, it looked like he was off the pace. Like the pace that he was playing, the pace that he was making decisions, it just felt so slow. And it felt like everyone else around him in the Liverpool midfield was just going at 100 miles an hour. And he just wasn't able to keep up with it. And it's probably the poorest performance he's had, which hurts to happen in such a big game. But yeah, poor man, absolutely poor. But yeah, I don't know if you want to add anything to any of that and stick the knife in on any of our players. But yeah, I think it's just one of them ones, really. There's not many players that you could say anything positive about.
Well, so I wanted to get your thoughts on like the Rashford and the Xerxes performances, because I've kind of heard 2 different things about both of them. Obviously, the crowd was booing when Rashford didn't come off. And then Ten Hag's come out and said like he created 2 of our best opportunities. Obviously, Xerxes didn't create the opportunities, but he was in the right position to be able to capitalize on them. Unfortunately, he didn't. But I've heard differing opinions from different fan bases on the performances from those 2. What did you make of them?
So Rashford's one is quite hard to analyse, because obviously, yeah, he did create 2 chances, but those 2 chances came after the substitution happened, and I think that's the reason why the fans were so upset in the stadium. So I think people need to, I've watched a few other content creators make that distinction. I think it's important to make. I don't think he had a poor. Like he wasn't the worst attacker. I'll put it that way, Rashford. I feel like what frustrated everyone was he didn't take players on, and he turned back on every opportunity when he had a chance to run into space and attack it. And this is not the first game that he's done that. There were clips going around about him doing the same at Brighton. There were clips going around again of him doing the same against Fulham. And I think we're at a point now where Rashford if he doesn't have a worldie, you're going to have people online coming for him and baying for blood. I'm not like that after that game. I don't think it was his worst game. I feel like he was tracking back. He was doing some of the stuff that we were asking him to do last season that he didn't do. I felt like he did put in effort. I just feel like he did not attack, and he didn't offer us anything in the attacking third. And even the stuff where people, Ten Hag or whatever, saying he created our chances, those are from crosses. And actually, that's positive for me. I'd like to see Rashford cross it more. So that is a sprout of positivity. I'm not going to dismiss that as something, rubbish that Ten Hag's saying. Amongst all the rubbish that he is actually saying, I think that's probably the only thing where I'm like, all right, fair enough. That's not terrible, and I actually feel like that might be good man management to try and get something out of Rashford. But I'll be honest, we could do that after every performance, unless Rashford has scored a couple of goals and had an absolute worldie. People are going to be onto him. That's just how the dynamic seems to be between the fans and him right now. Xerxes, have to be completely honest, all-time stinker. He looked really poor. He looked slow. He looked heavy, bro. I don't know if you thought this when you were watching it, but he just looked heavy. And because of that, he's kind of similar. I put him in a similar category to Mainu. It looked like he was too slow for the game. Like things were just happening very quickly around him, and he was just. It just looked like a slow, lumbering player who just didn't know what to do, where to lay it off, when to come deep, how deep to come, when to stretch the play. And then when he got the chances, I'm not even on to him about the chances because he's openly kind of done his Gabriel Jesus impersonation and said, I'm a 9.5. It's not all about scoring goals. He's basically come in and done that already. So I don't have the expectation he's going to be an out-and-out striker, like, an absolute gunman. I expect he's going to be more of a playmaker, striker, but I do expect him to score at least one of those chances, so it's disappointing. So I'm going to be honest, he had a really poor game, and it looks like he's just not fit and ready. And that might explain why Ten Hag hasn't been playing him, because I'm not surprised we've gone for a double false nine with Mount and Bruno, because both of those two players, like before Mount got injured, he looked lively, right? The quality wasn't there, but he was chasing, he was harrying, he looked fit. And can't say that about Xerxes, man. I thought he had a poor game. I would say he was the poorest of the three new signings, and De Ligt was probably the best out of the three, because I think there were moments in that first half where De Ligt was doing really well. One-on-ones, he was like basically, hold the door. He was the one holding it back when Liverpool was starting to build pressure. So I think he probably played the best, and Mazraoui somewhere in the middle. But yeah, I don't know. Rashford is a curious one. I think I would imagine you've got a similar opinion on Xerxes, but I don't know how you feel about Rashford.
No, I mean, I agree with most of what you said. I think, generally speaking, Rashford was not as bad as he has been previously. And I think overall, if you look at the chances he created, he was probably one of your better attackers. And that just kind of goes to show how bad you were attacking-wise in that game yesterday, if Rashford was probably your best attacking threat. And I agree with you on the kind of gun-shy aspect to him. I definitely agree with you. He just doesn't seem to be the guy that we came to know back when he was banging in goals, 20 a season or whatever else, because that was when he was just kind of like, it doesn't matter what the situation is, he's going to come at you and he's going to shoot. And you better hope he doesn't get past you, and you better hope he doesn't put it in the bottom corner. And that was what we kind of came to love about him, is that he was like unpredictable, extremely explosive, and, maybe not, I'm not going to say erratic, but, like he had some absolute world-class behavior in him whenever he needed it, right? Or every now and then. And I think now he just kind of looks more like Jack Grealish, he's like Jack Grealish, but without the system that Pep's doing. So it's weird that he's just become so passive almost when he came onto the scene. He was such an attacking player. So I agree with you about Rashford, and this is why I believe it's so much to do with his mental and not really to do with anything else. I think it's very clear to me that he is somebody that is relatively emotional, I guess, and that emotion can affect how he plays. And I think that, everything that's been happening at Man United, everything that's been said about him and about the manager, about the team, I think it massively affects how he plays. And I think he maybe gets in his head a bit too much, and then that affects how he plays on the pitch. And I think that's probably why Erik Ten Hag is coming out to try and put an arm around him. I think generally speaking, Ten Hag has tried to treat him in somewhat of like a fatherly way, right? Like, not just in a good way, but also in a bad way. Right? Like if he does something wrong, or if he's late to training, you're not starting, and I'm going to tell everyone that you're not starting, and if you apologise, we'll move on. But at the same time, when he's having a bad period, Ten Hag comes out and says, he's a good player, he's a great player, we have to play him, etc., etc. So I think he gives him a lot of confidence, but I just don't know what it's going to take. I think really he just needs some fan love. And I think he's probably received quite a lot of it and not really been able to do very much with it. But I think at this point, all of the negativity around him in the fan base, I think is just like a downward spiral for him. He's just going to keep getting worse and worse. And I don't think he's got what it takes to break out of it by himself. So it's a shame about him. I think Xerxes, he just looked off, he just looked like he was used to playing in the Eredivisie or playing elsewhere. It didn't look like he was, or the Italian league or wherever else. He looked like he was used to maybe playing in a slightly slower game, and he probably wasn't expecting. Konate and Van Dijk are not the two centre backs that you really want to come up against when you're in a new league, particularly because they're so aggressive. I think both of them are very aggressive centre backs. So I think it makes it harder for him, but I do agree with you. He kind of looked laboured. It looked almost as if he was wearing ankle weight sometimes. And I'm not sure if that's just kind of his style and the way that he runs and the way that he plays, but you really need to have a pacey threat or some sort of physicality to really worry Van Dijk and Konate. Because let's be honest, Van Dijk and Konate are two of the stronger centre-backs in the league and also two of the faster or quicker centre-backs in the league when they get going. So the only way that you're really going to push them is being like a Haaland, where you're kind of a bit of both, where you're an absolute monster physically and you can also run pretty fast when you hit stride. Or you've got to be like a Ollie Watkins, where you're just never going to let them rest. You're going to sit on their shoulder all day, faster than them, also pretty strong and a clinical finisher. And it just didn't seem like he had any of those things that were required to really give them give them any kind of worry. So I'm not going. I think the jury's still out on him. I think it's really harsh to judge him off of playing against two of the the better centre backs in the league, especially one of the I would say up there with Saliba as the best centre back in the league in Van Dijk. I think it's not fair to judge him just based off of this game. I think if he puts away one of those two chances he has, we speak differently about that performance, right? But the fact that he just. No, I mean, not like we're not going to say that he was world class. I'm not saying anything like that. But, with a striker, you've always got the opportunity, no matter how poor you play, if you put away a chance, you've done your job. And I think
you can rub things out. Yeah.
Exactly. You can rub things out. You can be a bit revisionist because that's really at the end of the day your job. And that's the issue with these 9.5s is that your main job is to score. If you don't do that, even if you do everything else perfectly, you can never be above an 8. Or above a 7.5 even, as a striker. You have to score. You're never going to find a striker that has a 10 out of 10 performance without getting on the score sheet or getting about like three assists. So with this whole Xerxes, Gabby Jesus BS, yes, great. You don't have to be a goal-scoring striker to be useful to a team, but you best believe that if your team needs a goal-scoring striker and you're the only candidate, that if you can't do it, you're going to get crucified for it. And this is where I kind of don't understand where Xerxes and Højlund fit in, because I'd say Højlund's probably more of a gunman than Xerxes, right? But the best, in my opinion, combination would be to be able to play them together. I think like Xerxes could probably play off of Højlund well, create chances for him, score his own couple of goals here and there, and really try and turn Højlund into like a machine. But I don't know if that fits into your system. So now I'm kind of... It almost worries me, like, what is Xerxes' job going to be? And does he actually fit his play type, his play style into what you're trying to do? Because right now I can't see it. Maybe Ten Hag's trying to get to something very, very slowly at snail's pace, eventually with a play style. But I kind of worry sometimes where Xerxes is going to fit into that. And I think yesterday was a pretty good example. If he's not going to be a clinical gunman, what help is he going to be against these big teams and against some of these matches where you're going to have to start winning them if you want to be a good team, right? If you want to be a top 4, top 2 of Premier League winning team, you have to win these games. So that kind of just worries me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and I don't disagree. I think with the Rashford thing, just my last 2 pence on this is just, I agree. I don't know if it's even recoverable with fan love. Because I think what's really broken it looks like what's broken him is he built a whole image of himself, and his PR company and his family and whoever built a whole image of himself around what he was doing and all the amazing work he was doing. And it kind of feels like people have seen through that, or that veil was dropped, and people are seeing some of the like unsavory bits about him, maybe, or maybe some things about him that are still in progress, a work in progress. Because as much as people joke around and we always act like the same with Jesse Lingard, pretend like he's still 19 when he's like 27 or something. He's still obviously growing up, like in everyone, in front of everyone's eyes. So I think that might be the thing. I think that's causing difficulty for him to find and regain his form again, because I do think he kind of feels very much exposed now. A lot of United fans feel like they know the truth about him, both on the pitch and off the pitch, and I feel like it might just not be repairable. I don't know. I think the longer this kind of stuff goes on, that might just be the case, and the more and more credence I think goes into the argument that he needs a fresh start, for himself. I'm not even talking about us, like getting his wages off the books or anything like that. Not even from a Man U fan perspective, just from a general football fan watching the situation, looking at the situation. I think that might be the only solution. And it's hard because he's obviously a big United fan, and it's hard for a lot of United fans who do still back him, because he's given us some good moments. Obviously not the pinnacle moments that we're looking for, but in this down period, he's played his part for sure in some of the trophies that we won, especially during the Mourinho era. Some of the performances during the Oli era. He was, that Van Gaal era with him and Tony Marshall coming up together. There was some beautiful moments, but that might just be, where we're going with that, and there just might not be a way to salvage it. With Xerxes, yeah, I mean, I think that Liverpool game wasn't a good style for him. That wasn't a good style makes fights situation. Like you said, I don't think his type of striker is going to really be able to hurt a Van Dijk and a Konate. Not alone. He would have needed like the wingers to come in and really, as a front three, he would have needed a lot more support from his wingers, and I feel like they were all a bit disjointed. So yeah, there'll be games where his style is really effective, and where him in combination with other people, especially from midfield and from out wide, will work. But that was not it. That was not it. That game, and yeah, he was definitely probably holding a bit too much timber, and he didn't look ready for such a massive game in a new league. First start. Yeah, if there wasn't a Mason Mount injury, I don't think he's starting. So, I gave my predicted lineup last week. I didn't predict Xerxes was going to start. So that tells you everything. Let's get into the Ten Hag thing before we wrap up and go on to the Arsenal game. I think this is the biggest real talking point, really. I think we spent probably more time than we wanted to on the actual game itself, because I think it was pretty straightforward. But yeah, Ten Hag, God, where do we start? Man United are the second most successful team in the last 2 years, 2 trophies behind Man City. He's not Harry Potter. He can't make Ugarte ready to start. It's going to take weeks, if not months, I believe, was the quote. He's basically beefing with the journalist live in the conference again, telling him that, we've won the most trophies after City in this time. It's a mess. He's moving mad. He's all over the shop. And I remember what we said after the FA Cup final, and I think both of us were joking around, but it was born in some sort of truth, that we wanted and enjoyed to see this kind of reckless Ten Hag come out and stick it to people, and telling Alan Shearer to do one and whatever. All of that was beautiful, because I do feel like there was, and probably still is, even to a certain extent, a bit of a witch hunt going on with him, like there was with Arteta in the tough times, like there was with some other managers that have had tough times. I think there is with Ten Hag, but boy oh boy, is he losing his rag in front of our eyes. I don't quite think it's a Rafa Facts type. He hasn't had a Rafa Facts type moment, or Kenny Dalglish, I'd love it type moment, but he's on the ropes, mate. He's absolutely he's I don't know how much longer he's got in him, and I think I can't say this with certainty because I don't think we've really seen Ineos make moves with the manager in at United yet. But I think this period between this September international break and the next international break in November, if he doesn't come out with, I don't know, 9 points out of 12 or whatever, like maybe he'd be allowed one tough result. But if he doesn't come out with a huge chunk of points from it and good performances, I have a feeling Ineos might pull the plug in that November international break, because that's the last real opportunity to do it before you get into like the winter schedule where things go mad in terms of games. So that's just my theory, and I've got to be honest with you, I would lose no sleep now. I'm not going to do the Ten Hag in and out rubbish, but I would lose no sleep if he left, because I mean the performances are absolutely abysmal. The results are all over the shop, and still too many bad results in a short space of time. And then he's coming out and talking absolute waffle in the press conference, and there's very little I can imagine a Ten Hag in person would have to back him. So I think by November time we'll all be shouting rude, and I won't feel an ounce of guilt shouting rude when it does happen, because this is not meant to be. This is not progression. I'll be real, and the trophies can gloss over some of that, and it's good banter to throw at you guys and Liverpool fans and other people. But let's be honest, there's not big enough signs, I think, of progress at all. And the fact that I have to come on the podcast nearly every week and try and say, no, there is a style of play, and I do see a difference, but the results are still, and there are people out there saying that we're still playing the same way. Even though I don't agree with them, that tells you how minimal the changes have been. And I'm sorry, in year 3, you shouldn't be seeing minimal changes. You should be seeing substantial growth now. As much as I fight with Arsenal fans about the whole Arteta was different, you saw the good signs early days, and I don't believe you did see the good signs early days. I believe it really did come at the back end of year 2 into year 3 where you actually saw good signs. For me, at least still, you saw good signs in year 3. What can I say? Apart from lifting trophies, there's been good moments. But in terms of signs of developing the play, I feel like we started badly, improved quite quickly, and then have regressed like at a very consistent rate, and progressively got worse in terms of our form and consistency. And I listened to someone who I think put it the best. A manager's job is to enhance the players' qualities and hide their weaknesses to form an effective team. And Ten Hag seems to be doing his best to minimize players' qualities and highlight their weaknesses. Because there's part of me that does think if I'm Casemiro, I'm livid with him, because he's put me in a system where I'm getting exposed week after week, and people are out here saying I'm kebab boss man and I shouldn't be playing football anymore. And I'm a Champions League winner. I get part of the thing what his wife did by sticking all the trophies there. He's a well decorated, one of the world's best DMs we've had in the last 25 years or whatever. And he's out here looking absolutely useless, like Sunday League level or lower. And the part of that is maybe him being over the hill, but the other part is that system stinks. It just doesn't work. And unless you've got two prime Kantes in there, it's never going to work. So you have to put that at the manager's door. So I can't rant and waffle and lose my mind over it more. That's just is what it is. And like I've seen a few other content creators say, we don't need to be out here chanting Ten Hag out. He's doing his own job of getting himself kicked out, and there's no one that needs to doubt him to join the cause. Is what we all seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you about pretty much everything that you said. I think he's showing everyone a masterclass on how to lose your job. I think, the first thing I'm going to point out is it's all well and good making jokes and saying Harry Potter this and Harry Potter that when you just won a game. I'm thinking now, like when Ange went on Sky Sports and said that, it's more like a nightclub than it is a fortress. It's all good, fine saying those things when you're winning, because people then, it just, it makes you more lovable. Everyone gets on your side because they realize that you haven't got a stick shoved up your ass and, you can have a bit of a joke. You just get battered 3-0 by Liverpool, arguably your biggest rivals. I know obviously City are in there, but really historically, Liverpool are your biggest rivals. Talking about Harry Potter, man, like as much as like it makes his analogy made sense in that he's not a magician, he can't work miracles. It's just not the time, and this is where it's almost as if like he's out of his depth in managing a club of this size or managing in a job of this importance, because that's just not the joke that you make at the time. And it's also not the comment to make when you've just lost to Liverpool. We've won the most trophies under Man City, who are also your biggest, some of your biggest rivals, like geographically speaking. We've won the second most trophies behind them. Like, you've just been slapped by Liverpool 3-0. That's not the time to show off what you've done and what what you've proven to yourself or to the team. And I think this is a great way to get more and more people against you. I think the media already have, the propensity to be against you because you're a Man United manager. If you don't do well, particularly, they're going to love coming after you because it's great clicks and great views for them. That's number one. Number two, you've had now numerous bust-ups, whether they were your own fault or the players' fault, with high-profile players that a lot of people have love for in one way or another, right? You add those two things together and you have a recipe for fans not liking you, and you have a recipe for the media not liking you. You then add to that you don't really get results outside of, some big wins. And I'm not going to call them flukes. I think you deserve to win those games. But I mean, like some big wins here and there. Outside of that, you're not getting results. So you've got three of probably the worst signs you could have about trying to keep your job in England. Because let's be honest, if the media don't like you, it becomes that the fans don't like you pretty quickly, right? If the media don't like you, you think, Ineos and whoever else is not reading all of this stuff. They're reading it too, so the likelihood is the board is not going to like you eventually too. If the fans don't like you, the board's definitely going to pay attention to them because that's who lines their pockets. And the media is going to pay attention to the fans as well. So it's just like you can't keep any one of those three happy, right? And then on top of that, there's rumors of like certain people in the squad not liking you either. So you've got basically the fans, the ownership, the media, and your own players all not your biggest fan. There is no way you're keeping your job. And as much as like I don't like to disagree, like to agree with Jamie Carragher, I think it is pretty clear that he's going to lose his job in the next couple of months. And I can't necessarily blame anyone for that happening. Right, I would love to come out and say, "Oh, the media suck. It's all their fault. Oh, the fans should be more patient. Oh, the ownership should be more patient. Oh, the players are just being divas." I'd love to come out and say all of those things. But at the end of the day, there's no smoke without fire. So, if all of these
take a miracle,
if all of these four are not liking you, your days are numbered. And the whole Rude thing. Man, I'm not saying there's a conspiracy going on, but it would be really, really convenient that Rude comes in to be the caretaker manager immediately after Ten Hag leaves. And we'll probably look back and say, oh, that was writing on the wall. Maybe they didn't fully get him in only because of that, because he's also a Man United legend, because he's also can contribute from a coaching perspective. But there's going to be a big old conspiracy that, Ineos knew that he was going to have to get sacked and they were just going to line up Rude in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, you could have said the same with the previous assistant coach setup, and either Van der Gaag or McLaren would have had the chops to come in. I think people are overblowing the Ruud thing a little bit. Like, obviously, he's been a manager recently. So if things go wrong with Ten Hag, he would probably be the one to come in. I mean, it could be Rennie Hack too. He's been a manager as well. So either way, they've got cover. I feel like that's quite normal in the assistant manager like setups and stuff like that. A lot of them have either dabbled with being coaches or have been full-time coaches themselves. But no, I agree with you. The only thing I will say is some of those elements, when they're all in combination, basically write your death sentence. Some of those things aren't guaranteed death sentences, and you can get past them, or they can actually galvanize you. The meat and potatoes of this is the pitch. That is all it is. Because I tell you, the reason why I made the Arteta thing is not because fans always do that. Although with the United and Arsenal, they have done it a lot because of the turmoil that both the clubs have gone through, and then now Arsenal's being used as like a bit of a guiding light for clubs that go through something similar. Arteta was getting hammered by the media. Arteta was getting like a lot of fans printing shirts and saying all kinds of Arteta out. You remember, like you were one of a select group of people, of Arsenal fans that I know, that was still Arteta in when things were difficult. There are a lot of people that really thought he was a bum. And the thing that changed everyone's mind was on the pitch. And things started to click, and the decisions that he was making off the pitch, people started to just gloss over them. The media were forced to change their tune, and things changed. Because Arteta was not a media darling. He didn't come in like Klopp or Mourinho and everyone just kiss his ass.
Well, he's still not, just to be clear.
Yeah. He had to work for it, bro. He's had to really earn it. From the media to like be somewhat decent with him, and they're still ready as soon as something goes wrong to jump on him. There's still some people in your fan base that are ready, even though you're doing well, to jump on him. The things that changed everything was the pitch. And I'll be honest, this is the difference between Arteta and Ten Hag right now. Obviously, you people on the Ten Hag side would say, "Oh, he's won more trophies," and sure, there are differences on that side too. But there is a quote that's going around by Ollie, and it's true. And I'm not saying it like Ollie's the oracle. It just happens to be that he said it. The true proof of a team's progression is how they're doing in the league. You can have people win trophies and cups. There are things like cup teams, right? You guys at the back end of Wenger were getting progressively worse in the league, but still nicking an FA Cup here and there because you still had enough stardust that on their day, you could pull off a win against a Man City or a Chelsea or whoever were good at the time. And that's literally where we are right now. We're getting worse as a team, and you can see that borne out in the league and some of the shocking performances. But on our day, we've got some players that can pull it off, and it happens every now and again. But that's not a sustainable way to develop into a good team. That's actually doing it the other way around. You're Benjamin Buttoning it and going the other way around. And while
I think
Ollie
it's just you're painting over the cracks. Like that Wenger era is a great example, right? Like the Wenger era is a great example. Those FA Cups and whatever else would keep us all like, oh yeah, Wenger's still good enough, and it would keep the conversation going. But we were worse, and we needed a change. And I mean, I'm not saying I was a massive Wenger out person, but we needed a change of the guard. Like, we needed a new person to come in. We needed a new era for the team. And unfortunately, Wenger wasn't really going to be the right man to lead us on further from that, right? But those FA Cups and whatever else paint over the cracks. And I think that's the thing with Ten Hag. Like, if you took all of those cups out of it, what would you say about your performances? What would you say about the team in general? You'd say that you're getting worse because you've literally gone to 8th now, right? So, from my point of view, as much as your fan base loves to hear, "Oh, trophies this, trophies that," if in the end it leads to a worse team in 10 years' time than if you hadn't won the trophies, I'm sure you would choose not to win the trophies. So
no, I would, because I look back on the Ollie thing. Ollie was 6th, 3rd, and 2nd, and I'm not saying I love that style of play, but there was a style of play, and there was clear progression. We were getting better. We were beating the bigger teams more. We were getting, and bear in mind, we were still getting to finals and semi-finals as well. We didn't quite get over the line, and we bottled it in some of them, right? And that was the thing, that Ollie didn't have that stardust to get us over in those big games. But he had the coaching setup, and we always smash them, Carrick and McKenna and all those guys around Ollie. But it's been proven they're good coaches, and I think our results in the leagues and stuff like that, positions prove that they were coaching them quite well. Just happened to be people didn't like the counter-attacking style. And again, I look back at our fans and say we were idiots and snobs at that time. There's nothing wrong with being counter-attacking. And actually, maybe if we'd have kept going down that route, who knows? We could have maybe been in the title race playing that style. But Ollie chose year 3, and he had the balls and courage to say, no, we need to change now into a dominant team. And that's what derailed him, right? Because the setup wasn't built that way. And he had too many players that were the wrong style. And this team, I'm sorry, they're getting worse. When Ten Hag first came in that first period, the purple patch before the World Cup and slightly after the World Cup, basically leading all the way up to the Liverpool smashing, people weren't out here saying we had the best style, but style was starting to develop. It's almost like that 7-0 walloping just destroyed everything. After then, we literally descended into this results-based team. And nothing was about style, nothing was about performance, nothing was about any sort of coherency at all. And it just became, we need to get results. We need to get to the cup final. We need to win. We need to get to the FA Cup final. We need to, find a way to win rather than continue building a style. And I feel like that's all you need to know about a manager, is whether or not they persevere and they continue with their philosophy and they keep going. And we've had ample signs from Ten Hag where he said, I'm not going to play my Ajax football. We're going to be the best transition team. We're going to do this. He's been waffling for months, and we've skirted over it. But you can't keep skirting over the performances, and you just need to. A lot of United fans that still want him in, I think we need to just come to the realization that it's not happening, and it's not going to happen, and it will take a miracle for it to happen and continue. But anyway. That Man U segment was way longer than I thought, but understandable considering such a poor performance and all the Harry Potter waffle and crap that came out off the back of it. It was awesome.